Hi guys, welcome to iFashi. In today's tutorial, we'll be teaching us how to cut and sew these beautiful trendy shorts. It's very beautiful and versatile. You can wear it on many occasions, depends on how you style it. So if this is something you're interested in, let's get right into it. Now here is the pattern paper that we'll be drafting on, and here is the 2 yards crepe fabric that I'll be using for this project. You can go ahead and use 1.5, it depends on your size. So on this my pattern paper, the first thing I'm going to do is to mark out the starting line, which will serve as our waistline. So on the top of my paper, I just roll out a straight line there and label the line my waistline. Now from this waistline, we're going to take all our measurements downwards. Now the first measurement I'm going to be taking is my crotch depth. To take this measurement, I'm going to be removing my waistband. So as you see on the screen, my tape rule starts from 1.5 from the waistline downwards. So I took my hip measurement divided by 4 and I added 1 inch as my crotch depth. That is the method that I use to get my crotch depth. Hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1. Now I have my crotch depth. I went up with 2 inches to get my hip line. So those are the 2 lines that you are seeing here. Then the next line we're going to be taking is the full length of this short. This depends on how short you want it to be. So I'm using 18 inches for these shorts. Then remember to also add your folding allowance to your full length. Now on my hip line, I'm going to take my hip measurement divided by 4. On the crotch line, I'll take my hip measurement divided by 4. On the waistline as well, I'll take my hip measurement divided by 4 and I'll use my straight ruler to connect these lines together. Remember, we're drafting the front pattern first. Now the next we're going to be getting is our crotch extension for the front. Now remember, on most of our pants tutorial, I always tell us that to get your front crotch extension, you have to divide your hip by 20 for the front. Divide your hip by 20 and impute your answer starting from that hip measurement that we ruled out earlier. So I have 2.2 as my crotch extension. I took 2.2 on that crotch line and came out with 0.5 on the hip line and used my curve ruler to connect these lines together. Now the next thing we're going to do is to check this crotch extension we just took if it tallies with our thigh measurement. My thigh circumference is 26. I'm supposed to have 13 on this crotch line, so I'm checking to be sure I have 13 and I have more than 13, which is very okay. So remember to check this your crotch line if what you have there tallies with your thigh circumference divided by 2. Now we're going to go to the full length. Now measure what you have on the point you want your short to stop. Divide it by 2 and impute your answer. Then we will go to the waistline to work on our waist part. Now for this waistline, we're going to remember we took our hip measurement from the beginning of the paper. Now we're going to come down on the center front by 0.5 inch and slant it towards the side front. Remember, this crotch part is our center front for pants. After coming down with 0.5, we will now take our actual waist measurement. Now divide your waist measurement by 4, add 1 inch. As you can see on your screen, this short has some fold on the waist that looks like a dart on that dart point. So you're going to impute your waist measurement divided by 4 and add 1 inch that you will use for these dart folds. Then you're going to connect from that answer down to your hip using your straight ruler. So we will now cut off the excess we have on that side front because our hip is not straight like this paper. So after doing that, that's all for this front part. We're going to go ahead now and cut it out. But for now, I'll not be cutting out this side and this upper part just yet. Remember, we came down on the waist by 0.5, so I'll be needing it for the back piece. So for now, we'll leave it like that and pin down this pattern paper onto the fresh paper we'll be drafting our back on top. After pinning it down, we're going to be taking the difference between the back and front, and the first difference we are going to be taking here is our crotch extension. Crotch extension for back is divided by 10, not the 20 we used for front. So you're going to divide your hip by 10 for back. Starting from this straight line going upward to the waist, you're going to take you're going to take your answer. Mine is 4.4, so I took my 4.4 there. Remember, front was 2.2. Now my back is 4.4. I'll connect it to meet that hip line. And then for the back allowance, because the back carries the butt, so we're going to be adding 1 inch on the inside, which is this crotch part, and 0.5 inch on the sides. You can also use 1.5. This depends on how free you want the shirt to be. So if you use 1.5 on this inside of the shirt, you're going to use 1 inch for the sides. But if you use 1 inch for this inside, you will now have to use 0.5 inch for the sides. So now if you notice what I'm doing here, while taking the allowance for the side, you fold in this excess for the front that will not be needing. I've gone ahead to even cut it out. Now I'll use my marker to connect the allowance that I added on the sides before we will now work on the waist. On the waistline for the back at the crotch part, we're going to be going up with 2 inches. This is because when you bend down, you don't want your butt to be revealing on that back part. So we'll go up with 2 inches on the waistline and connect it with our slightly curved ruler to meet the waistline that we have for the front. So these are the two basic differences we have for back, the crotch part and the waist part, then the allowance. That's all. So now I've cut off the excess I have for my front waist. That part we came down with by 0.5 on the front, and now I'll just go ahead and use my tracing wheel to trace out all these lines I have for the front. Then I'll use my marker to highlight these lines. That's how simple drafting the back of this shirt can be. If you don't have a tracing wheel, you can go ahead and use your marker to mark these lines out. So now we have our back piece, we have our front piece. The next thing we're going to be cutting is the pattern that we'll be using for the fly zipper. So now as you can see, the flap part is equal and the sides are equal. Make sure you check that. If it is not equal, you have to blend it on the crotch part. So we're going to keep the back piece aside and move into this fly zipper part. Now, here's the pattern paper I'll be using and the zip I'll be using for this fly zipper. It's advisable to use a short zip that will not exceed your hip line because we just need 8 inches. 8 inches is just fine. So on this fresh paper, I'll be taking 8 inches length from the beginning to the down, 8 inches, and then I'll take 2 inches for the width. I'll be using 2 inches because I need it to be 1.5 by the time I join. So 0.5 inch will serve as the sewing allowance. So now at the end of my 8 inches on this curved, I'm going to curve it to give it a curved look like this before I cut it out. So after cutting it out, I'll fold my pattern, another pattern paper, and cut this same 8 inches and the same size for the zipper shield. This one is the fly zipper itself that will be on the outside, but for this folded one, it will be for the one on the inside. So now we have two papers here, the single one, which is the fly zipper, and the folded one, which is the zipper shield. So I'll label them and pin them down onto the front pattern. Then I'll go ahead and cut out on fabric. Remember to add your seam allowance when you are cutting on fabric. I don't want to waste much time, so I'll go ahead now and cut. Now this is what we have. While cutting, I added my seam allowance to the sides, both the upper part joining to the band and the sides that will be joining. Then this is our fly zipper and the zipper shield. Also, I've gone ahead to cut our pockets. I have 7 inches wide for pockets, and in length I have 11 inches. You don't want your pocket to be longer than your hip. So the pocket is cut on fold, 7 inches wide and 11 inches long. Now we have all our pieces. We're going to go ahead now and keep the pocket aside, keep the back piece aside, and start working on the front piece. The first thing we're going to do on this front piece is the fly zipper. So I'll remove my pins and remove my pattern paper, then we'll go ahead and start working on the fly zipper. So at this point, if you don't know how to fix a fly zipper, you're going to pay attention to this video so that you know how we did everything we did concerning this zipper. So the first thing I'm going to do is to measure where I want my zipper to stop, which is the 8 inches that we marked out earlier. If 8 inches is too long for you, you can just place your tape on your shorts. Make sure it stops before the curved parts, before it starts extending to the crotch. Just place your tape on your shorts and measure what you have there. It is usually between 7 to 8 inches. So for me, this is where I'll be stopping, where my tape is on my shorts. I'll mark that point. So after marking that point, I'll go ahead and use my 0.5 inch allowance to stitch from here to that point I marked where the zip will stop. So after marking it with my chalk, I'll take it to the sewing machine now and sew. Then I'll be right back to show you guys. Now I've stitched it. I just stitched with my 0.5 inch allowance that I have on my crotch part. So now I'm going to notch where I stopped stitching. That point that our zipper will stop, just give it a short notch, and then we can now open it to the right sides. So when you open it like this is what you're supposed to have. Then we will now pick the zipper and attach it to our shorts. Now to attach your zipper, you're going to place it right sides facing each other. The right side of the zip will face the right side, the good side of our fabric. And also, make sure your zip the zip you're using is not too long. So this one is way longer than 8 inches. So what I'll do is to push it towards the waist so that I'll cut it off on the waist part when I'm done. Watch closely and see how I'm placing my zip. The right side is facing my shorts. So I've gone ahead to open up the shorts. Then I'll go ahead and pin down this zipper. Remember, we are supposed to use the same 0.5 sewing allowance so that it will align with what we have stitched under before. Now what I'm going to do now is to place this zipper shield on top of my zip and go and stitch, and I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what I have after stitching both the zipper shield and one side of the zipper to our shorts. This is what it looks like. In case you're confused, I'm going to flip it to the other side so that you can see this is the wrong side of our shorts. The zipper was attached, then the fly zipper is placed on top. So I'm going to arrange it properly now, then take our main zipper fly, the single one. Remember, the zipper shield is the one that was cut on fold. So the other side, we have not attached anything. We're going to go ahead and attach this fly zipper, the single piece. This is the piece that will be on the outside. So I'll place this curved part of this fly zipper and stitch it, then also top stitch it. Then I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what we have. I've gone ahead to stitch this single piece on this other side, and I've also top stitched. Remember to give it a very good press after top stitching. Then I'll now go ahead and arrange it properly now, then zip up the zip. Remember, one side of the zipper has not been attached, so I'm going to zip it up so that I would arrange it properly before we'll take it back to the sewing machine. Now after zipping it up, this is what it looks like. This main fly zipper piece that we just stitched and top stitched will be on the outside like this. This is the one that will be covering the zip. So what I'm going to do now is to pin it down the way it is supposed to be, making sure that there is no squeezes on the crotch whatsoever. Now I'll pin it down on these waist parts. Then after pinning it down, we can now take it to the sewing machine and stitch this other side of the zipper that has not been stitched. We'll now stitch it like this, as you see me doing. So I'll take it now, I'll stitch it, and I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what we have. I've gone ahead to stitch down this second side of our zipper. So with this, our fly zipper has been attached. So what I'm going to do now is to hold down this flap with a stitch. So I'm using my chalk to mark out the curve that I want to have on this fly zipper. So I'll go ahead and stitch it down neatly, and this is what it looks like. The only remaining thing now is to stitch down this inner. Now this is what it looks like. You're going to stitch it and cut off the excess you have on that crotch part. If you're having any puff, give it a very good notch because it is not meant to puff out. So this is what it looks like. Our zipper has been fixed and the crotch is looking so perfect. What we are going to do now is to move over to the next step, which is the attaching of the back piece to the front piece. So like we did for the front, we're going to also stitch down this back part with 0.5 inches on the crotch part before we'll now come and add it to the front. Now this is what we have. We've stitched down the crotch, so you now open it right sides facing each other, place it on top of each other. If you were not attaching a pocket, you just go ahead and stitch the two sides, but we're attaching a pocket. So what we're going to do, before adding the back piece, we're going to stitch down our pocket to the front piece with 7 inches. I'm using 7 inches because that's where I want the stitch on the pocket to start from. So I'll pin it down. When you're pinning down this pocket, remember not to start from the waist exactly. Leave out like 0.5 inch that you use to attach your waistband. So right sides facing each other, I've pinned down my pocket. The next thing I'm going to do now is to close it down like this. So we'll repeat the same thing for this other side. So after pinning it down on this second side, I'll take it to the sewing machine and stitch it down up to 7 inches that I marked. After stitching it down to 7 inches, I'll also top stitch, and I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what we have. I've stitched down the pocket to the shorts, and I've also top stitched. So this point we're going to be attaching the back piece of our shorts. So to add the back piece, you're going to fold it like this, the same way I'm folding on the table, arranging it like this. Fold the pocket inwards and leave out like 0.5 inch that you'll be using to attach it to the back piece. Now after arranging it like this, I'll place the back piece of our pants right sides facing each other on top of the front piece of our pants. Now I'll go ahead and start attaching it on the sides. At this point, the back piece will be attached to the pocket up until that 7 inches that we stopped for the front. So when you're attaching this point, push in the front piece so that you don't mistakenly sew it. Remember I said you give that 7-inch point a notch, the point where you stopped attaching the pocket. Notch it so that it will freely go inside for you to continue your sewing. Now when you get to the end of that 7 inches point, you will now start stitching the front piece of the pants and the back piece of the pants together. From the beginning on that waist part down to the 7 inches, you are not attaching your back piece to your front piece. You are attaching your back piece to your pocket. It is until you get to that 7 inch where you stopped the pocket of on the front, that's when you now start attaching the back piece of the short to the front piece of the short. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch it now, and I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what we have. We've attached the pockets and joined the two sides. So I'm going to flip it out to the right side now and hold the waistline on the pocket part. So I'm going to pin it down right sides facing each other. After pinning, I'll take it to the sewing machine to stitch on that waist part. Remember the pocket was attached separately. One side was attached to the front and the other side was attached to the back, and that's why the waist part is opened. So now what I'm doing here is pinning them down on the waistline, the two pockets. I'll pin it down. The part that we'll be stitching is that 0.5 that we came down with from the pants. Remember I said when we're attaching the pocket, you don't start from the beginning of the waist, you come down with 0.5. So after pinning it down, I'll take it to the sewing machine and hold that waist, close down the pockets, and then close my crotch. Before I close down the crotch part, I'm going to go ahead and fold in the hem line. I'll stitch it and use hemming gum to iron it before I'll now close the crotch. I'll do that now and I'll be right back to show you guys. Now this is what we have. I've stitched down that waist part that was open at the beginning of the pocket, and then for the hemline I've also stitched it and used hemming gum to iron that down part. Then we're going to work on our waistline now. Now for this waistline, remember when we were drafting, we added 1 inch for both front and back to the waist that we will use to achieve this pleated dart that we have on the waistline. So I'm going to take that dart now and mark it out. From the beginning of your zip, you're going to come in with 4 inches for the front and mark that point. And then do the same thing for the other side of the front, 4 inches. That's the part that will hold together to form a box pleat that will give us this effect we have on our short. So I'm holding it down with a pin. I'll do the same thing for the back. From the joining we have on the back, we're also going to take 4 inches and pleat it, hold it down with a pin like a little box pleat on that waistline. Now after holding this down, you're going to take your waist measurement to be sure that you still have your exact waist measurements after making the box pleats. So I have my waist measurement is still intact. So what I'm going to do now is to stitch down this part that I'm holding down with a pin, and then remember our pocket is still dangling. After holding down those darts, I will stitch down the pockets on the waistline so that it will be firm on the waistline. Take your pocket towards the front and stitch it down. After doing that, I'll be right back to show you guys, then we'll start working on the waistband. Now this is what we have. I've head down this box pleat I have on the waist dart, and then I've also stitched down my pockets to the front part. I did the same thing for the back as well. Now we're going to take our waist measurement and use that measurement to cut our waistband. In our previous pants tutorials, I've shared my little tips on how I achieve a perfectly seated waistband. I'll be repeating it here, but if you don't understand it, you can go back and watch those pants tutorials. The link will be in the description box under this video. So these are the waistbands that I've cut. This longer one will be the band for the back. I cut excess because I will be needing to add allowance to join this back to the front band. So watch closely and see what I'm doing here. On the waist part, the part that will be on our waist, not the part that will be joining to the short, I'll come inwards with 0.5 and slant it towards the down part that I'll be joining to the short. That 0.5 will snatch the band a bit and make it sit firmly on your waist. So for these other 2 pieces of band, these are the ones that I'll be using for front. You can just use your tape to measure what you have on your front, add 0.5 that you will use to attach it to the back because we'll be joining them together. Then take the same 0.5 on the waist part, not on the down part that you are joining. No, please remember that. Then we are going to do the same thing for the second piece that we are attaching to the second side of our front. You can use your tape, you can just use this one that you've worked on already to cut out the second one. Now after trimming out these sides, we are going to now attach it. I'll be teaching us how to attach these bands together. So you open up this back piece, right sides facing each other, place the front piece on top and join these 2 sides. Now this is what we have. I've joined the 2 sides. We're going to notch it because it's not straight, it's curved because of that 0.5 we took on the waist part. So you open it up and give it a very good press. Iron out this part, and remind you, this is a white fabric. I've gone ahead to add a stay to this band. Add stay to your band to make it sit firmly. So at this point I'm ironing, and then after ironing I'll turn it over to the right side and give it a very good press on the outside. Then this is what you're going to have. That 0.5 will make that waist, the upper part of the waist, very firm on you. You don't want to have a bulging waistband that is not seated perfectly on your waist. So I'm going to pin it down now. While you're pinning, make sure the side that you join aligns with the joining you have on the pant itself, on the shorts. The part you joined on the waistband, make sure it is aligned with the joining you have on the side of your shorts. So after pinning it down, on the end of this our band, you are going to also stitch it on the wrong side and turn it out on the right side. Make sure it aligns with the end of your shorts. If it's longer, cut it off before you stitch. So make sure it aligns with the end where your zipper is, then pin it down the way it's going to be stitched. I'll repeat the same thing for this other side. I'll hold it down with a pin. That part I'll be stitching it before I'll flip it to the right side and then pin it down. After pinning down the waistband to the shorts, the next step is to attach the little pieces that will serve as our belt loops, the part that holds the belt. So we're going to stitch down a piece of fabric about 0.5 inch wide. Depends on how wide you want your belt loops to be. So after stitching it down, turn it out to the right side and give it a good press. Then you're going to insert it in between this band while you are attaching the waistband. This belt will be on the inside. Then after attaching the waistband, you will now turn it over and top stitch the other end of the belt to the waist part of our shorts. Now this is what we have. I've attached my band and our belt loops as well, and on the waistline I've added my hook that will hold down the band after the zip. Now that we've done all of these, we've come to the end of this sewing tutorial. I'll go ahead now, give it a good press and put it on for you guys to see the shorts that we just made. So guys, this is the beautiful shorts and how it came out. I hope you liked this video. Remember to share and subscribe. Also turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to be notified when we drop our weekly tutorials. Also remember, you can request for tutorials by just being a member of this channel. The link to joining the membership is in the description box. Thank you so much for watching guys. I'll see you in the next one.